Picture this. You have just been called into your manager's office. They slide a piece of paper across the desk. It's a promotion offer. New title, bigger salary, a corner office if you're lucky. Every instinct in your body is screaming at you to grab that pen and sign it immediately. But what if I told you that signing that document could be the single worst financial decision of your entire career? What if the most profitable move you could make right now is to look your boss in the eye and say, "No, thank you"? I know that sounds insane. Everything we have been taught about work tells us to climb. Climb higher, earn more, get the better title, and impress everyone at the dinner table. But there's a concept so mathematically devastating, so perfectly hidden inside normal corporate life, that it has been quietly destroying careers, killing happiness, and draining billions of dollars of value from companies for decades. And almost nobody is talking about it in a way that actually makes sense for your real-life decisions. Today, we are ripping the lid off the Peter Principle. We are going to look at the hard data, including a study of over 50,000 workers, that will genuinely make your jaw drop. And I am going to hand you a real framework for navigating one of the trickiest conversations you can have at work. By the end of this video, you are going to see your career in a completely different way. And that shift in perspective could literally be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. So stay with me because this gets very real very fast. If you want smarter, data-driven decisions about money and career growth, subscribe now. We do this kind of deep dive regularly, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. All right, let's go back to 1969. A man named Lawrence J. Peter wrote a book that was initially treated as a satirical joke about office life. People laughed at it. They shared it around the break room. Management consultants rolled their eyes. But here's the thing about brilliant ideas disguised as jokes. They have a habit of turning out to be completely true. And over the following decades, researchers, economists, and organizational theorists kept finding the same pattern Peter described, over and over again, in data from companies all around the world. The Peter Principle states something deceptively simple. Inside any hierarchy, employees naturally rise until they reach a level where they are no longer competent, and then they stop. They don't get fired, they don't get promoted again, they just sit there, permanently, occupying a role they cannot perform well, blocking others from moving up, and collecting a paycheck for delivering mediocrity. Let me walk you through exactly how this happens, because it is so logical it almost feels inevitable once you see it. You start a job, you work hard, you get good at it, your manager notices, you get promoted. Now you are in a harder role. You adapt, you push through the learning curve. You become good at that one too. Another promotion comes, and this keeps going. Every time you master a level, the system rewards you by yanking you out of that level and dropping you into a harder one. This cycle sounds like success. And for a while it is. But every person has a ceiling. A point where the skills required by the next level up simply do not match what they are actually good at. And when you hit that ceiling, everything changes. You're no longer the sharp, confident, energized professional you were 2 roles ago. You are confused, stressed, and quietly struggling. And the brutal irony is that the system has no obvious way to move you back down. So you stay right there at your ceiling, in a permanent state of managed failure. Now you might be sitting there thinking, this sounds theoretical, like an interesting idea, but maybe not something that applies to your specific industry or company. I need you to think about a specific person right now. Maybe it is someone you work with, someone you have worked with in the past, or maybe it is someone you see in the mirror. Because the research says this pattern is not rare, it is the default outcome of most traditional career paths. Here's the example that clicks for almost everyone. Think about the best salesperson at any company you know. They are relentless, they are charming, they are competitive as anything. They chase every lead, close every deal, and blow every quarterly target out of the water. So what does the company do? They make them the sales manager, obviously. Reward the star, let them lead the team. But here is the problem. The skills that make someone an elite salesperson are almost the opposite of the skills that make someone a good manager. Selling is individual. It rewards personal drive, a certain kind of strategic selfishness, and the ability to focus completely on your own pipeline. Managing is collective. It demands patience, empathy, the ability to coach someone through failure, and a willingness to put your own ego aside so others can grow. Take the lone wolf and put them in charge of the pack, and something almost always goes wrong. But we will come back to the hard numbers on that in just a moment, because the data on this specific scenario is genuinely shocking. First, I want you to understand what is actually happening at the psychological level when someone gets stuck at their level of incompetence. This is where the Peter Principle stops being a career theory and starts being a mental health story. When you are operating inside your zone of excellence, work feels manageable. Hard days happen, but you know you can handle them. Your confidence stays reasonably stable. You go home feeling like you contributed something real. You have an identity built around doing your job well. That identity is worth something. It matters more than people realize. Now take that person and drop them 2 levels above their competence ceiling. Suddenly, every day is a reminder of what they cannot do. They sit in meetings they do not understand. They make decisions they are not equipped to make. They manage people who can clearly see them struggling. The stress compounds, the sleep gets worse. The performance continues to slip, and the worst part is they often cannot even name what is happening to them. They just feel like they are failing at something they should be able to handle. This is one of the primary drivers of executive burnout, management dysfunction, and what organizational psychologists call role misalignment. And it is almost always triggered by a promotion that looked like a success from the outside. Now let's talk about the study I mentioned earlier, because this is the part that removes all doubt. A few years ago, a group of researchers published a landmark paper examining promotion patterns and performance outcomes across more than 200 companies. They focus specifically on sales teams because sales performance is measurable in a way that very few other roles are. You hit your number or you do not. There is very little ambiguity. What they found confirmed the Peter Principle with precision that surprised even the researchers themselves. The single most reliable predictor of who got promoted to a sales management role was individual sales performance. The top sellers became the managers, almost without exception. The logic seems sound on the surface. Reward excellence. Elevate those who perform. But then the researchers looked at what happened to the teams those newly promoted managers led. And this is where the numbers get uncomfortable. The better someone had been at selling, the worse their teams performed after they took over as manager. There was a direct negative correlation. Superstar salespeople led teams that significantly underperformed compared to teams led by people who had been average or above average individual contributors. The very quality that earned them the promotion was the quality that made them bad at the new job. And it went both directions. Not only were the teams performing worse, but the companies had also removed their most productive individual contributors from the roles where they were generating maximum revenue. One promotion simultaneously destroyed value in 2 different places at once. The person who was promoted became less effective, and the team underneath them became less effective. That is a compounding loss. And it was happening systematically, not as a rare exception. The researchers also identified what actually predicted success in the management role. It was not raw sales volume. It was a history of collaborative behavior. The salespeople who had consistently worked well with colleagues on complex deals, even when that collaboration meant sharing credit, were far better at managing teams. But those people rarely got promoted first because their individual numbers were not always the flashiest. So companies were systematically selecting for the wrong trait and promoting it into the wrong role. And the result was predictable, expensive, and almost completely avoidable. There is one more layer to add here, and it comes from statistics. Specifically, something called regression to the mean. This concept is important because it explains why promotions can create the illusion of incompetence even in genuinely talented people. Think about what has to happen for you to get a promotion. You typically need a standout year. You need to absolutely crush your targets. You need to be visible. You need your best work to align with the right moment when leadership is paying attention. To have that kind of peak year, you need both skill and luck. A hot market, a major client relationship that clicks, timing that breaks your way. Here is the mathematical reality. When you get promoted after your best year, statistics dictates that your next period of performance will very likely drift back toward your personal average. Not because you got worse, but because you cannot sustain a lucky peak indefinitely. The luck that contributed to your spectacular year is not guaranteed to repeat. This is regression to the mean, and it is iron law. So now you were in a harder role, working against higher expectations, with your performance naturally settling back toward your natural average. To everyone watching from the outside, it looks like the promotion revealed a weakness. In reality, the promotion system just plucked you at your statistical high point and placed you somewhere where the correction would be most damaging. Now here's the practical question. What do you actually do with all of this information? Let's say you get a promotion offer. You think through everything we have talked about. You look honestly at the new role and you recognize that it pulls you away from the work you are genuinely excellent at and drops you into a set of responsibilities that do not align with your actual strengths. You decide you want to decline. How do you do that without torpedoing your reputation, damaging your relationship with your manager, or being written off as someone with no ambition? This is where most people freeze, because we have been trained to believe that saying no to an opportunity is the same as admitting failure or giving up. It is not, and the way you frame the conversation makes all the difference. The first thing to do before that conversation is what I would call a real skills audit. You need to separate what you actually want, which in most cases is more compensation and more recognition, from what you are being offered, which is a specific role with specific responsibilities that may not suit you. Those are two different things. And a smart negotiation keeps them separate. When you sit down with your manager, you do not lead with the word no. You lead with value. You explain clearly and confidently where you believe you generate the most return for the organization. You frame your refusal as a strategic choice made in the company's best interest as much as your own. Something along these lines. I genuinely appreciate this offer, and I have thought about it carefully. Where I create the most leverage for this team is in doing the core work itself. I want to be the best specialist this organization has access to. Can we explore a path that allows me to take on more complex projects, mentor junior team members, and be compensated at a level that reflects that expanded contribution while staying in this kind of role? What you are doing there is proposing what many tech companies already call the senior individual contributor track. You are creating a lateral path that rewards depth rather than demanding you switch to a completely different skill set. This kind of arrangement is more negotiable than most people realize, and the fact that you walked in with a clear, articulate vision of your own value and how to deploy it is going to signal something very specific to good leadership. It signals that you are serious, self-aware, and genuinely thinking about outcomes rather than ego or optics. Now, if your manager responds by saying the only way to earn more is to take on the management role, Pay very close attention to that moment. That response tells you something crucial about the organization you are working in. It means the company has not built any structure for recognizing and rewarding deep expertise. It means they only know how to express value vertically, and that is a signal worth taking seriously when you think about your long-term trajectory there. Here's the counterintuitive truth about what happens when you stay in a role where you are genuinely excellent. You become the most indispensable person in the room, not the most senior, not the one with the biggest title, the most indispensable. And those two things are not the same. During economic downturns and restructuring rounds, the pattern is remarkably consistent. Middle management gets hollowed out. Director layers get consolidated. But the people who actually build the product, write the code, handle the clients, and deliver the core service tend to survive. Because removing them would immediately break something that matters. Their value is visible, immediate, and hard to replace. The people at their level of incompetence, the ones who were promoted past their ceiling, are often first on the list when difficult decisions get made. There is also a quality of life dimension to this that deserves more honest conversation. When you are doing work that genuinely aligns with your abilities, you experience something very different than just professional success. You experience a kind of daily dignity. The sense that you know what you are doing and you can do it well. That you are not spending half your working hours in low-grade panic about whether you are about to be exposed. The mental and physical health costs of sustained role misalignment are real, and they compound over years. The person who is consistently excellent at what they do, and fairly compensated for it, is in many ways living a richer professional life than the person who is technically higher on the org chart, but silently drowning. Here is where I want to land this whole thing, because I think there is a mindset shift buried underneath all the economics and the data. We have been sold a story about careers that measures success exclusively in the vertical direction. Higher title, higher floor, more reports, more meetings, more authority. But that story was never built around individual human beings with specific wiring, specific gifts, and specific limits. It was built around the needs of organizations that want to fill roles as efficiently as possible, which usually means promoting whoever is most visible in the role below. Your job is not to serve that machinery uncritically. Your job is to understand yourself well enough to know where your curve peaks, where you are genuinely excellent, genuinely energized, and genuinely creating value. And then to have enough confidence in that self-knowledge to camp there, to defend that position, to negotiate fiercely for recognition and compensation within that zone, rather than abandoning it in pursuit of a title that might slowly hollow you out. The smartest career move is not always the next rung on the ladder. Sometimes it is the decision to stay exactly where you are producing your best work and to get paid like the expert you actually are. The Peter Principle is not just a theory about bad managers, it is a warning about the hidden cost of blind ambition. The data is clear, the pattern is documented, and the choice is ultimately yours to make. If this video shifted something in the way you are thinking about your career, I want to know about it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Have you watched someone get promoted directly into a role that was completely wrong for them? Have you ever turned down an opportunity that other people thought you were crazy to pass on? I genuinely want to hear your story because these real-world examples are where the most interesting data lives. And if you found this useful, hitting the like button takes about half a second, and it helps this kind of analytical content reach people who actually need it. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.